Hey, what is up, everyone? It's Rich. All right, what's today? Saturday. Wait a minute. What, Rich? Saturday? This is confusing. That's right. What does that mean? Let's do it together. Super Fun Saturday! Mach 1. Yeah, I was going through my storage yesterday, and I don't know what is going on at this corner. It's crazy. That's weird. I'm assuming that my cats did that at some point. I don't know. Maybe I got it like this. It could have been. I probably bought this used and it probably already had that. I haven't seen this in a long time. I have like 3 or 4 different versions of it. But this one is nice because it's kind of big. I think I have one that's bigger, but this is big. This is bigger than a comic. But yeah, so Judgement on Gotham, Simon Bisley, Alan Grant, and John Wagner. So when I first started collecting comics, this had been out for probably a while. I don't know what year this came out. We could check. Let's do this. So it looks like this came out in 1991. Okay, yeah. So it was definitely before I was even collecting comics. But this was definitely a must-have book. You heard about it through the channels. And Bisley is a badass. Tomorrow I may even do the Art of Simon Bisley book. But yeah, very unique style. Adept at many mediums. This is painted, a lot of it, or maybe all of it. Beautiful, beautiful work. It's like acrylics, oils, whatever Bisley wants, he is bold enough to go for it. And it's really, really beautiful. So let's do this. There's a back to this also. If you look around online, you can actually find some pretty big scans of some of these originals, or at least you could before Google image search got creamed about a year ago because of Getty Images and conflicts of interest with that, which kind of sucks because it's harder to search for large size files now. But anyway, yeah, this book is beautiful. I would highly recommend, if you've never seen this, to definitely check out Slain, Slain. Simon did the first 6 books of it, although it gets a little watered down, a couple of the issues, but they're all really good. But the first couple are great, and then probably deadlines and all that kind of stuff start to affect things. But yeah, so let's take a real good look at this. So Bisley has a lot of influences. He'll definitely credit for Zeta for some of the energy and power and maybe like color flourishes that he uses in his work. But Bisley is kind of his own man. I mean, I would say that if you're a little bit older and maybe saw Bisley come up, you could probably peg other like UK influences that he had. I would imagine that he's probably a fan of Brian Boland. But yeah, ultimately Bisley is kind of his own thing. And it's really powerful. It's been pretty influential to a certain style of comic art. Think like, he runs in the school of like Bill Sienkiewicz. Trying to think of some other people that there's another painter I'm thinking of that what is his name? Can't think of it right now, but anyway, but yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that Bisley's not only like sort of just like bold approach, but a lot of his like shapes, exaggerations and stuff like that, I think definitely had an impact on people. It's just really, really great looking art. And he's really extremely gifted, talented, and I think early in his career, very, very hard worker. I mean, he just draws so good. I mean, the fact that this is painted, it really is a testament to how different it is over in Europe as opposed to the United States in terms of art education. Because although I didn't grow up there, again, as a huge fan of music, there's more opportunities to pursue art in school, especially present day United States. I mean, it's almost like a burden that the schools have to bear, which is like PE, music, or art. And, you know, depending on the school, they all get chopped and there's no focus on them. And that's really a shame. But yeah, in Europe, you know, it's less uncommon for maybe like someone 18, 19 years old to have studied painting, you know. It was an opportunity I never got in school, I'll tell you that, or even early college. I mean, I suppose I could have sought it out, but, you know, maybe someone from the UK can kind of explain it more. And is it still like that? But yeah, I mean, Bisley's great with anatomy. He's really good at, I think, diffusing detail. You can see this is a really good example of kind of actually like it's nice that this beat of the story happened when it did. I mean, if you really look at this is pencils with just a very light application of paint over it. So he'll drift in and out of this at times. You can see it in Slain in certain sequences. He'll use it as a storytelling element. But yeah, so the stuff is penciled, but then it's just like he builds up layers of paint on it, and depending on his mood and I guess storytelling effect that he wants, he can take it way further, or you know, really kind of pull back on it where you're almost really just seeing like the underdrawing with a little bit of flourish of color or sort of special effects. Sorry, my camera was trying to focus here for a second. Really excellent capes. And this guy's out of this world. And Simon is a guy like this stuff. Definitely, I don't think you wouldn't make the mistake of looking at this and thinking that this is simple to do, but he's really, really good, and he does kind of make it look easy, or like you would go like, oh yeah, well, this makes sense. Like this is how Bisley draws, but he's really, really, when he's at his best, he draws at a very, very high level. He chooses to draw in this like wild style, but he's got a lot of info in his head that if he wanted to be more sort of restrained. It's interesting because Frazetta actually touches on that in Painting with Fire, and I think it's a phone interview that's a bonus disc. It's actually a hidden Easter egg on the second DVD, that if you go through one of the photo galleries, there's a phone conversation, and he talks about the Verotic line of books that he's going to do with Danzig. This is probably in like the mid-90s, and they're going to do Death Dealer. And he's talking about Bisley being the artist for the book. And Frank even kind of addresses, he goes, you know, Bisley's real good, but he's got to control himself. You know, Frank didn't want anything, I think, too pornographic or too like overly violent, which is funny because Frank could, in theory, be criticized for both at times. But you know, Frank handled most of his work in a pretty classy way. But Frank had a wild side too. Don't kid yourself. He was a man's man. And Bisley, from what I understand, is a wild man too. Still is. I actually heard some stuff this year that Bisley's he's still a barbarian in human form that happens to draw art. God, look at those arms on that. It's so great. You know, and David Finch is actually pretty influenced by Bisley. Not all the time, but definitely had that. And someone had asked about, like, I had maybe mentioned that there was a funny story. I think what it was is there's a funny photo that I had seen, and I think it might be either in the, God, what was that book that he did with Kevin Eastman? Melting Pot. It might have been a photo in the back of one of the Melting Pot issues, or it could have been like the back of his Art of Bisley, but it's a photograph of a table where theoretically he probably works and eats, which you don't want to mix your oils with your foods. It's an artist hack. Keep the oil paints away from your edibles. But yeah, there's like all these empty beer bottles like everywhere on the table, and then like an ashtray that's a fairly big ashtray. It's like the size of a small clock. And it is just packed with, like, cigarettes. At least that's how I remember it. But I think that was the funny story. It's just I had seen that photo, and I was like, damn. It reminded me of like a mellow version of there's some photos of Francis Bacon's studio. Francis Bacon is a fine artist, but his studio is like just, it's probably the craziest thing that you would ever see as an artist workspace. It's up there. It looks hazardous to your health. It's like a hoarder house slash like toxic um, paint refuge. I don't even know how he could breathe in there, with all the just like stuff that was out. Oh my god, it's crazy. It would kill me. I have very sensitive respiratory. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful work. He's got like some Prismacolor pencil going over the acrylic airbrush, and I know that he uses oil paint, so some of this could be oils. Real mixed medium approach, and damn good. He's so good at figure drawing, and again, it can be very, very stylized, but dude can draw his ass off. He influenced a guy named Frank Turan too. There's a bunch. Jim Murray clearly is like a Bisley fan, which is cool. It's Simon kind of like created. Maybe Glenn Fabry was an influence on Bisley, or vice versa. I'm not really sure. But yeah, pretty fascinating that at the time when he was doing some of this work, he was probably pretty young, but boy, he really had a vision and an agenda with his work that I find really like cool. Really nice, kind of Sienkiewicz-y there. So this is 91. I mean, obviously Bill Sienkiewicz had done like some pretty iconic work at that point, so Bisley was definitely pulling that into his wheelhouse. It's fascinating too because Sienkiewicz has a lot of like fine art and illustrator influences. So Bernie Fuchs, and you could really rattle off like a big list of artists that Bill Sienkiewicz is into, that are real obvious if you know stuff outside of comics, meaning illustration and fine art. But it's interesting because he owned that style so heavily in comics that it's, you like, if you do anything like this, you're definitely going to be compared to Sienkiewicz, which is, it's always an interesting, I don't know if dilemma would be the right word, but yeah, it's kind of like whoever gets there first and sort of does it, that's the one that you're going to need to contend with in terms of like, are you going to be able to go beyond what they did? And a lot of that I personally think is just, you have to own it and do it long enough that it really becomes identifiable to you, because there's no way to avoid it when you're originally like starting to do it. Is every person that will come up to you is going to go like, oh man, your stuff reminds me of Bisley, or it reminds me of Bill Sienkiewicz, but that's going to be their reference point. It doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't into Bernie Fuchs, or like, I'm spacing out on the names. That's great, man. The helmet, that is really, really cool what he did there. Actually, between the Journey of 1,000 Miles and me recording this, I've almost inked a full splash page. And then I'm going to draw for the rest of the day, actually, when I finish that, on my own stuff. But, yeah, I felt like I wasn't posting too many videos this past week, because sort of the recovery from Comic-Con always sort of like, let's lay down. That's really cool. Capullo has actually pulled a little bit from Bisley. There's some painted pieces that he's done that definitely have a little bit of this sort of thing. It's kind of Frazetta-y too, though. Man, it's so cool. But yeah, really good suggestion with Bisley, because he's really, really good. And we could always do the Slane books at some point too, because I wouldn't mind going back and checking those out. I think I have them in my office, actually. Studio. It's interesting too, because if you are aware of like Phil Hale, even early on, Phil kind of had a little bit of this going on. Not as like fine art, but Phil did a little bit of like comic book covers and stuff like that. Yeah, I can imagine if you if you were an English artist growing up in the late '80s or early '90s, Bisley definitely would have been on your radar. Man, it's so cool. I've actually seen some of these originals in person too. They were floating around for a while, and yeah, I gotta actually check out some up close. They're really cool. Can't remember if it was from this book though. I don't want to like say that it was definitely from this book, but I've 100% seen some Bisley paintings from around this time, like sequential pages and some splash pages. Kevin Eastman, in fact, has like one of the largest Bisley collections I think out there. He was buying, I think, almost everything from Simon Bisley at one point. I like Bisley always draws like little like they're like smaller cars. It's funny, like that one not so much, but yeah, he like almost does like the like clown car kind of thing. It's interesting too because you like this looks very cartoony. Like the characters all of a sudden kind of go to like almost a very childlike sort of approach to the drawings on him, and then he'll hop right back into the realism. And maybe a character like this is the guy with the glasses in particular is kind of a weird blend of the two, where it's like it's got the finish of those more simple drawings, but with the painting skills of the other stuff. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how he'll kind of flash back and forth between the two. And I would almost think that he probably doesn't really think about it, and it's just like his confidence. Like he just is like, that's how it's gonna be. Fuck it. And he runs with it. That's really nice, man. I don't really picture Simon being on YouTube, so he'll probably never see this. Usually I'll give a little shout out to the artist, but Simon, if you do see this, I love your work. I've been a big fan, really probably since the first month or two that I started collecting comics. At Wildstorm, I got a print of your Warblade painting that you did. I still have it. And I actually bought, there's a statue. They did a resin kit statue of this like barbarian with like a big like saber-toothed cat. And I bought it. I've never put it together, but my fantasy at the time was that I was going to actually commission you to paint it in like the Bisley style. I was going to put it together and send it to you. And then try to commission you to paint it. I knew it would be very expensive. I also knew that I would probably never put the model together. And yet here we are many years later. The model has never been put together. And you can occasionally find it on eBay. They actually don't sell for that much, which surprises me because they're very rare, and the thing is badass. Someday maybe I'll paint it myself, like if I get my skills up to the point where I'm confident with it, because I think with little acrylic and some airbrush and stuff like that, it could really be badass. The guy's got like bird wings on his helmet. It's a pretty iconic Bisley piece. The sculpture is beautiful too. Whoever did it did a great job. It's really nice. But from this era and a little bit after, I think I have nearly everything that Simon has done. There may be some oddball, like smaller press stuff that he's done here and there, but it's pretty determined to pick up most of the stuff from his earliest career until whatever, my taste changed as I went along too, so it's like one of those things where my focus wasn't so much on probably this. But yeah, really cool. Oh man, that's a nice shot. God, man, love the background. God, it looks so cool. Again, he makes it look real easy to have the application of paint that nice and really have that kind of look and atmosphere. He's got an incredible eye for what he's doing. Oh, Bisley, you are really good. So yeah, I would highly recommend picking this up. There's some collections that you can find that actually house this, and I don't remember if it's his work or Glenn Fabry, but they're nice. Like it's like a painted sort of graphic novel. It's a nice little panel down there. But yeah, I have that. Maybe like a UK version of this. That face is so awesome. Batman, man, it's just like... Man, this bottom panel is great. You can kind of see the underdrawing a little bit more in this. There's a decent amount of paint on it, but just in spots. It's like a little self-portrait of him. At least I think it's him. It might not be, but I'm pretty sure it is. Man, like, again, the lighting on that Batmobile is sick. It's so good. He really understands how to light form. You see it in his anatomy when he does like chest and abs and all that. Like, he'll light them really, really good, and it looks just sick. It kind of looks like him too back then. So hopefully this is a super fun Saturday. So coming a little bit late in the day, but I had to recharge my phone after the journey of 1,000 miles. It's really cool, the lighting, the blue lights on those guys. It's been a long time since I've seen this. That's funny. The security card is awesome. Look at that arm. Man, it's so awesome. At one point, at Wildstorm, Scott Doombeer got like a huge stack of like Simon Bisley sketches, like marker sketches and stuff like that. And I made photocopies of like every single one. I'm super OCD, so like when I do stuff like that, like I can't like not just do them all. So somewhere I have that. If I ever find them, I'll break them out. But they're pretty cool. But yeah, it's just a bunch of like I don't know if it's necessarily personal work, but it's just a bunch of like marker sketches, and it was really cool. Assuming Simon just had them and was like, I don't want them, give me money for them, and you can sell them. So because Wildstorm, they had what they called Wildstorm Fine Arts, which was like a kind of a sub company that dealt with original art. So Scott Doombeer, who is now the mastermind behind the IDW artist editions, that's what he did before he got to Wildstorm. He was an art dealer, and then he came to Wildstorm and was like, I think he ultimately became editor-in-chief. I'm pretty sure. Some of Wildstorm days are a blur even for me. All right, that is cool. Look at that. Drum kit. He did a real nice job on the hardware. Like I like the lighting on it. I'm trying to remember if Bisley plays an instrument. I almost want to say that he actually plays drums or guitar, maybe, or did. Man, that's so nice. If you know who some of Bisley's early influences were, let me know. I'd be curious of who it is. There's another, that European artist. What is his name? I never really got into his stuff, but he draws this character that looks just like this. I know the comment section will be good for this because people will know. Man, that's really nice. He does really good lettering. Some of the lettering on the pieces, the painted lettering, that doesn't look great. It's painted on the boards. But he'll sometimes paint lettering, like sound effects and stuff like that. Really, really nice, too. He's got, like, really cool kind of calligraphy. Nice shot. Nice shot. Really cool. Boom. Super killer splash page. Beautiful color choices. The guy's just on point. He's on it. Another book I would highly recommend. It's not Bisley, but like this splash page is making me think of it. It's one of my favorite Bill Sienkiewicz jobs. Is seek out his Moby Dick adaptation that he did. There was a series of sort of like little graphic novellas, I think called Classic Illustrated. Kyle Baker did one. There's a few like Alice in Wonderland, some different books like that. But yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz did Moby Dick. It's really good. Probably it's up there, man. It could be my favorite work that he's done. There's a few. Bill's got a few like really like sweet spots for me, but could be the content that I react to in it too, because it's a little different, you know. Man, look at the lighting on the forms there. It's just so nice. So hopefully this is getting people pumped up to draw. You don't always have to draw like disciplined. You have to be disciplined in your education. Then you get wild. Bisley wild. You can see these are a little like less paint on them. He's getting towards the end of the book. Finish line's coming. It's like, gotta get this done. I used all my time painting pages. I just gotta draw the stuff and put a little paint on it. It kind of does look that way though, actually. It's not bad though. The drawings are still cool, but you could tell he's trucking here. Ain't got no time to paint layers and layers of paint. I'm gonna build it up with like some washes. Really nice drawings, man. Just he's got a good eye for 3D. That's it too. It's his form and structure. Like that really helps. One, not only his drawings dynamic because of it, but also that's why he can paint light on the forms. Is he really does understand the forms that he's putting down, and he's able to run light and shadow across them in a very effective way. But that's knowledge. That's not copied shadows that Bisley's doing, because sometimes you'll see people like that where they kind of mimic things that they've seen. And I had mentioned there's a superhero comic book artist that's a fairly successful guy, but I mean, there's just no doubt in my mind that when he like lights like whatever a heavily shadowed character, you can just see it's like, okay, so he just took like 5 different lighting things that he memorized that don't even really work well together, but like it's like, oh, he learned like you can put a shadow under the chin, then you can light the eye socket like this, and he sort of sticks them all on things, and it looks like a lit figure, but it doesn't make any sense. So with Bisley, it looks like he understands light. It's just not like a couple of techniques like slapped onto a Batman figure or whatever. So if you want to be consistent with your thing, but again, if you ever saw that video, you know what I'm referring to. I also say that it's like I see both sides of it, and honestly, most fans wouldn't care. So you have to respect both sides of it, which is, as an artist, you want to try to fake as little as possible and learn the real stuff, but at the same time, you know what? No one really gives a shit. All right, have a beer for Bisley. Smoke some cigarettes. No, don't smoke cigarettes. You could have a beer. Just one, though. Something strong, though, I think would be what Bisley would recommend. And, yeah, grab some paints out and then bust out some Batman Judge Dredd fan art. All right, have a great day. Super fun Saturday. Tomorrow I'll be back with super fun Sunday, and yeah, let's do it. All right, have a great night. Bye.